Hey, what's up YouTube, Scabadger here, and we're back on day 46 of our 100 player fun series. So as we can see, the game is over. Victory reward payouts have been made, and yeah, we won. So, we won for a coalition victory by joining the North Americans. Now the reason we did this was to end the game in a timely fashion, as compared to where we started a month and a half ago, we've all got a lot on, and especially me, I'm relatively busy, so we took out the easy option and ended the game with minimal fuss, and yeah, everyone's happy. So where we're at the moment is we finished second in the game. Now we would have liked to have came first, but with just how busy I've been over the past 2 weeks, I've struggled to find the time to actually put in any effort and contribute. So finishing, in second place with New Zealand is actually quite an accomplishment. I've never seen New Zealand do this well before. Now, the reason I say that is generally because New Zealand being one of the lowest possible, really in the middle of nowhere. If we have a look at it in relation to all the other territory, New Zealand only really has access to this territory up here immediately. Every other territory, like even if you're South Argentina, which is all the way down here, you have easy access to South America, and you can easily control that with your morale. So New Zealand is definitely going to be one of the harder, maybe even the hardest location to play. Now, it does have its advantages, and that being easy defense. So actually, I'm going to rephrase that. It might not be the hardest to play, but the hardest to win with. New Zealand is very easily defendable, but it is impossible. Oh, it's not possible. It's incredibly hard to actually make any progress and move forwards. Territories in Asia, for example, they might be a little harder to win with, purely because you've got so much fighting going on. If you're landlocked in Asia, you have nowhere to run to. You can't fall back on your navy. You can't, do any of that sort of stuff. So you're not really defendable. They're hard to expand from. A lot of fighting, and yeah, but to actually win as New Zealand is a lot harder, just due to how hard it is to manage your economy and your morale. So let's move on from that. This episode we're going to treat like any other final episode in the series. We're going to take the opportunity to look at how the game ended, the territory everyone controls, and we're going to review how things went. So we're going to start with the stat for the last day, which is largest economy. And as we can see, we are in second place, and we are about 150,000 behind New England. And that's not bad, considering he actually controls twice as much territory as we do. So if we actually have a look in here, we can see that we control 667 provinces, while he controls 1,112 provinces. So despite the fact he controls twice as much territory as we do, our economy is still relatively competitive and powerful. Now, the reason why his is not twice as big as ours is actually pretty simple. If we have a look at the territory New England controls, he controls this area in North America, a large portion of South America, basically all of Africa, other than these two parts, a very large portion of the Middle East, Turkey, and I think that's like Romania, and no, Romania is down here. Anyway, parts of Russia. So he controls a lot of territory all over the place, managing morale and keeping a very high level of production over that area is incredibly hard. As we saw with ourselves and what I did, I invested heavily in, this is just turn my map on, it's useful for things like this. I invested heavily in fortifications in my northern territories to ensure they had a high level of morale. As we can see, I had fortifications popping up all over the place. In particular, in food-producing provinces and oil-producing provinces, I invested heavily to make sure that they were able to produce at the maximum rate. So, we put in a massive effort to that, and it was an incredibly hard thing to do. And that would have only been made harder for New England, who had to do it over a larger area. So with that out of the way, let's move on and let's have a look at the territory everyone else controls at the end of the game, and we'll do a little bit of a review. So as we can see, we started all the way down here in New Zealand. We pushed up into Australia, and our buddy New South Wales went inactive as he went on holiday and gave us his territory. no bad feelings there. I had offered to defend him, but he was pretty certain I was going to take his land. So, I mean, hey, his choice. So if we come up further, we can see where we have progressed. We can still see the last few remnants of New South Wales, the territory I didn't have time to capture. So, you know, that's pretty good to see as well. We can also see that I control a massive amount of the islands surrounding the Pacific, and all of these outer kind of rim ones. I'm not sure how you kind of phrase that. Now, this is the only group of islands we didn't get time to capture, Micronesia. In fact, that may be possibly the last remaining actual AI in the game. Could be wrong. We'll have a look as we go around the rest of the world. So coming up into Asia, we can see that I control a lot of India, China, and this general area down here, including Japan and a bit of territory off into Russia. You can see that our ally, East Yakuta, if I can pronounce that right, controls a lot of this cause. Now, just due to how late it was in the game, it didn't make much sense for him to try and get his other core territories back off Alberta. At least as far as I'm aware, he didn't try. We can also see that Alberta controls some territory in Russia and pushing all the way west, further into Russia. He controls a large portion of the northern Russian area, so I'm not sure really what to call that, but hey, that's the territory he controls. Now over here we can also see the remnants of Mongolia, who I was in the process of taking out when the game ended. I was lining up a few nuclear bombers I never got to use, so I'm relatively sad about that. It also appears as if, did those two groups there get to engage? Nah, they didn't. Well, that sucks. I was waiting for these two groups to open the fives and nuke them at some point. Anyway, never got round to that. We can also see that Pakistan was, making an effort to rebuild, although he was constantly being, annoyed by New South Wales, who was just, I don't know what New South Wales was trying to achieve, but he got results. Kept messing with him and dealing a lot of damage. A unit of that size is not going to be easy to destroy. Pakistan has rebuilt pretty well, but the looks of it, considering he was basically wiped off the face of the earth, and his army actually looks pretty competent. However, we were going to attack him, but we never got round to it, and I believe we would have easily smashed him again. He hasn't learned from his mistakes earlier on in the war, and if we click on all of his units and get them all off, we can see that he controls a lot of armor, a lot of anti-tank guns, but very little anti-air. So let's just keep going with that. Let's keep going. Let's get everything. So as we can see there, he has basically no anti-air, but for some reason, along his border with me, he has lined up heaps of anti-tank guns. And that is a really interesting choice, considering I don't have any tanks. So, I mean, hey, his choice, not mine. He probably didn't have any intel and would have thought late game a player would have invested heavily in that sort of thing. As we can see, I was grouping up my infantry before spreading it out, and I was going to attack him with a large infantry-based army, of which he would not have been prepared for. Although he has plenty of tanks, they would have been outnumbered and overpowered relatively quickly, considering they're still pretty low level. As we can see, his tanks would be attacking my infantry with 5, while my regular infantry, basic infantry, would be defending with 4.5. Considering I have a numerical advantage, he'd very easily be outgunned. Libya's capital is still in the Middle East. Now, this is where he finished, especially after he got pushed out and got hammered by Spain. Spain got overwhelmed in the end by numbers, really. That's all it was. Spain put up a massive fight and actually did really, really well once Italy went inactive. But due to the fact Italy, King Congo, had declared war on the rest of the world, and then the rest of the world was coming to kick their asses when Italy went inactive. So, yeah, Spain got dragged down by Italy there, and it was kind of a shame. But you just gotta be careful who you ally with, and if they do start doing dodgy things like that, you just back away. You honestly don't be allies with those people that declare war on everyone for no reason. So, also if we come on down, we can see that once again, like I said earlier, New England controls basically all of Africa. Illinois controls a bit in the northwestern side of Africa, as we can see right here. Coming up into Europe, we can see that the territory is actually pretty divided. Spain has had a few provinces rebound coming in the last couple of days, and it appears as if Illinois was actually getting ready to capture those back. Like I said before, these territories are away from their core, so maintaining morale in them would have been relatively hard. We can also see that New England controls the southern section of Italy, while the northern areas are actually occupied by Quebec. Quebec pushed in through England and then pushed south down through there and was able to claim a lot of territory in Europe and actually did really well in that regard. Romania is rebuilding at the moment and was slowly getting there. In the end, Quebec took points from him to actually push us along and get us to the end. Romania had to go inactive and was taken out by Italy while he was away. So that was a little bit of a shame right there. We can also see that India is inactive, but we've got the Indian and this capital over here. Wrong province, yep, there we go. And these guys are still, barely hanging on. They're inactive, but considering the vast amount of territory they controlled when I attacked them, I wasn't going to chase them all this way. It would have been too hard for me to maintain morale, and would have been, not worth it. So I returned to peace with them as soon as possible, and I was going to get there eventually, but I still had to go for Pakistan first. And as we can see, we're already having issues maintaining morale in these territories down here. As you can see, some of it still hadn't settled from when we'd taken out South India. So, there was that right there to think about. Anyway, on to South America. South America is basically completely controlled by New England. Quebec and Illinois control some territory there as well, along with Alberta. So, once again, team effort here by the Americans. They conquered it pretty fast, to be honest. Venezuela, who was up here in the north and was a gold user, was actually overwhelmed by sheer numbers. He hadn't really prepared too well, and there is a point where numbers do beat that sort of thing. Now right here we can see North Mexico. Now North Mexico worked with the Americans the whole game, and as you can see, he has got a little bit of an army, but he never really did all that much. I think he was happy just riding along, just following them along for the victory. I don't think he was too fussed on winning the game, but hey, even if it was through a diplomatic approach and for keeping everyone happy, he made it this far, so good for him. So as you can see here in North America, we can see how the territory was divided. I'll just switch that off so you guys get a better view. New England controls most of the East Coast, and as we can see, Illinois controls, I guess that's Midwest America. I don't know, not American, and I suck at geography. So hey, Illinois controls the central area of North America. Quebec controls the majority of Canada and pushing through the Midwest as well, down to the West Coast. Is that the West Coast? Would that be the East? Yeah, West Coast at this point. As we can see, Alberta, as you'd expect, being positioned where he is, controls, the Alaskan area, Canadian area, and a portion of the East Coast, potentially pushing into the Midwest as well. If you could consider that Midwest, Northwest America. Right, so I guess I was kind of right. I don't know. Anyway, so now that's the end of the game, and I've looked at how everyone ended. It's time we actually took some time to talk about. Oh yeah, and I guess Micronesia is the last remaining AI. Good work, buddy. You did well. I was going to come kill you eventually. What did you have? Did you have... his provinces were starting to rebel too. No one would have been selling their food on the market. Yeah. Oh well. Anyway. Moving on. Now, as it's the end of the game, I usually take this opportunity to discuss what went well and what we could do better in the future. Now, for me, this game was actually, quite a bit about fun. So I wasn't overly concerned about winning. Obviously, I always try to win. I always put in the best effort possible. So with that in mind, there was a few things I tested in this game, considering it wasn't too serious, and that was not touching the armagery. And I feel like this actually worked out really, really well for me. In the end, I was able to actually specialize and have a formidable army, which is the first time I've been able to muster an army in a long time. As you guys will remember from my recent fan games, I've struggled with my army, and I've never really been able to produce an effective one due to the fact I've been focusing on my Navy and Air Force. Now this game, while I focused on my Navy, it was never really needed all that much. As we can see, I was able to construct 2 fleets in the end, and they're right here, as well as a massive amount of submarines. So I'm not sure if we can actually select them all in one go, but yeah, let's just have a look at that. So as we can see, there's already heaps there, more submarines up here, and I've got some more up around by Japan as well. So I think that might be all of them. As we can see in the end, our Navy was pretty massive and pretty formidable. We had in total 6 carriers, 6 battleships, 10 cruisers. Oh no, it's even bigger than that. I forgot a group. We got these down here as well, which were in reserve. So, you know, now that I click on that and I actually realize, yeah, we had a pretty formidable Navy. So, I mean, between destroyers and cruisers, we had 50 of those, plus 65, that's 115 naval craft, plus 12, 127, 130 naval craft and naval assets. So that actually makes up nearly, basically, a third of our troops. So I guess, you know, actually looking at it now, we actually spread the load fairly reasonably. We didn't go all in on our Navy like we have in the past, and our Navy was, you know, actually at a very competent point. If we have a look at our Air Force as well, our Air Force is actually extremely powerful, and like, I mean, it's not the best and the biggest in the game, but it's not one that, you know, you'd want to mess with. As you can see, and where are the other aircraft? Where are they? Add more somewhere. Where are they? I'm gonna find them. So I want to look good. And another group somewhere. Where are these down here? Then I think I sent some up to an airbase around here. Where'd they all go? Yeah, well, that's a little better. Anyway, so as we can see there, you know, we did have a fairly competent Air Force, and I had the ability to expand on that at any point. If we're coming down here as well, I believe I had a few more interceptors laying around, quite a few naval bombers. So, you know, we definitely had a very potent Air Force, and had we needed to, we had the resources to expand on that. But it was, yeah, this is probably actually a very good balance, very effective. However, I probably could have done with more tactical bombers. But I mean, to be honest, over the past few days, I could have easily have done that. It's just being too lazy and having needed them. So, you know, now if we move on to our army and we have a look at that and bring up some units really quickly. Actually, I'll just start fresh. Come on down into New Zealand, like that little garrison we're keeping at home because it needed to heal. Moving up, we've got some troops in the islands that are selected. Anti-tank gun, make sure the anti-tank gun's down here, and the light tanks are being selected. Then we've got massive amount of infantry. And then just make sure we got that group down there. Yep, we did. And yeah, I think that's everything. So, you know, looking at that in the end, we do have some armor, and this is all stuff that rebelled to us and was captured, because obviously, as you guys saw when I looked at the research tree earlier, we hadn't researched any. So these tanks came from New South Wales, and the tank destroyer we built after we captured it from National China. So anyway, in review of our army, we have a pretty good balance. As we can see, 63 anti-air guns, 33 infantry, and 44 anti-tank guns. Now, I probably could have done with more artillery, but once again, it was getting to the point in the game where my Air Force was able to take bosses, was able to hit targets with anti-air, so it wasn't overly important. However, moving forward, had this game continued, it would have been something for me to invest in. So, you know, at the end of that, my army is definitely pretty decent in this game. Definitely the best army I've had in a long time, and is capable of projecting power for a change. Something of which in the past I've relied on my allies for. So, you know, with that being said, yeah, this game, I actually got the balance right. Did pretty good there. So in terms of what we didn't do so well, I feel like we didn't really use as much diplomacy as we normally would, and it's something that I probably needs to work on. When I was negotiating with National China and his buddy, what's his face, who I could pronounce, but I'm going to butcher it. This guy here. I always intended to take them out, and even though I was able to store them and was able to make a temporary ceasefire, I wasn't I never really felt in control of the situation in a diplomatic terms. They were never going to attack me, but I never really felt like I controlled the situation. Now I don't know why that is, but I feel like when I was talking with them, when I was chatting with them, they always had the upper hand. They were always taking the lead. I never really took the opportunity to not necessarily make my demands, but to actually take lead and take the initiative in the diplomatic area. Now, I don't know if that was because I never intended to actually work with them, I never wanted to make them any deals, or if it's because I just, I don't know. That one needs some thinking, and I need to review that even more. But in the diplomatic sense, I definitely took it a little easier this game. We did have a lot of friends in the game with us, so in that regards, I didn't need diplomacy as much, so that could explain why I was pretty poor in that area. So with that being said, maybe I do need to actually jump into some more public games, actually, work on my diplomacy, get that back to where it was, be a little more charismatic, and yeah, because I felt like when I engaged in diplomacy with National China and his friends, I was able to get what I wanted out of them. That being a temporary ceasefire and more time to build up, capture Japan, so I could then liberate Korea. But yeah, it just didn't feel right. So that is something that needs to be worked on. On top of that, something that I need to consider going forward is maybe it's time I chose decent countries that can actually manage their morale. The last few games we've played as New Zealand, we've played as Madagascar, South Argentina, and these countries, as you've probably noticed, are all in the South Hemisphere at the very bottom of the map. And while they are ideal for defense and that sort of stuff, they are pretty hard late game to manage just due to how their morale works. Being at the bottom of the map, it is pretty hard to control the morale in the northern areas. So with that in mind, going forwards, I probably do need to think about that, and yeah, maybe it's time to change myself and moved and started playing as places I wouldn't usually touch. So I think I'm going to end the episode here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in whatever comes next.